Hello, everyone. Welcome to lesson 2 of Unit 5. So yesterday we introduced our graphs using graphs to chart data from a table. We're going to do the same thing today, but we're going to actually compare two different sets of data on the same graph so we can look at them side by side. All right, and then we have another thing, twist kind of thrown at us with this one. We're going to actually get to come up with our own data just following the rules that the book suggests for us. Okay, so we're going to actually kind of have some fun with this. So let's start. We're on page 287. I want to make sure that you are following along with me and filling this out as I go so that you are able to complete your own page on your own. Okay, this is 287. 287. Okay, so we are looking at the growth stories of Tara and Nat. All right, so Tara's story. Tara was 80 centimeters tall when she was 2 years old. She grew at a steady rate until she was 10 years old. Okay, so it looks like they give me 80, and they say she was 80 centimeters when she was 2. After that, though, I don't see any more data in here. The only thing they say is that she grew at a steady rate until she was 10 years old. So it seems like as long as I start with 80 when she was 2 years old, I can kind of make up my own numbers from that as long as I think about growing at a steady rate. So steady means it's pretty much even each time, right? So each growth or each year that she grows, she should be growing about the same, right? That would be a steady rate. So let's go ahead and fill in Tara's information. I'm going to go down to my chart here. I'm sorry, table. So I'm going to look at my table. Here's Tara's height. And the only thing I know for sure is that she was 80 centimeters at 2 years old, right? So 80, 2 years, okay, they match up. Now I'm going to continue on from there all the way up to age 10. And the only thing they told me was it has to be a steady growth. Okay, so I'm just going to make something up. Let's say she grows, let's say 5 centimeters each year. Okay, if she's growing 5 centimeters each year, then that would be a steady growth because each time she's growing about the same amount, right? So I'm going to start with 80. Then my next one will be 85 and then 90. So I'm just counting by fives here. 95, 100, 105, 110, 115, and 120. Okay. I have no idea if that's actually a correct height for a 10-year-old because I'm not very familiar with height in centimeters. So I'll have to look that up, see if I totally messed that up. But we're going to go with it for now because we're just using the numbers to put into a chart. All right, so now that we have Tara's height filled out on our table, let's go over to Nat's height. I'm going to look at my explanation here. Let's see, it says Nat's story. So Nat was 85 centimeters tall when he was 2 years old. Nat grew quickly until he was 4 years old. Then he grew at a slower, steady rate. Okay, so that's a little more complicated than Tara's. So let me start out with what I absolutely know. First of all, I see 85 centimeters, and that was also at 2 years old. So I'm going to start Nat, 2 years old. So this section right here is going to be 85. That's where he started. Then it says he grew quickly until he was 4 years old. Then he grew at a slower, steady rate. So he grew quickly until he was 4. I probably need to do bigger jumps than what I did for Tara's, right? Because it didn't say Tara was growing quickly. It said Tara was growing at a steady rate. So that means she was just growing about the same each time. Nat was growing quickly. So instead of jumping up by 5, I'm going to jump up by 10. So if he started 85, I'm going to say by 3, he was 95. And by 4, he was 105. So I'm jumping 10 each time. Okay. Now I stopped at 4 because in my directions it said that he grew quickly until he was 4 years old. After that, he grew at a slower, steady rate. So my data is going to change here. These jumps, each one is plus 10, right? So those are larger jumps. Now, since his growing is slowing down, I'm going to have to do smaller jumps. So I'm going to go back to 5s. Let's go back to 5s. Okay, so now he's slowing down. but it's still steady. So it's going to be a steadier rate than just the 10s. Okay, so we have 105. So if I keep going from there, adding 5, that would be 110, then 115, then 120, then 125, 130, and 135. Okay. All right, so now we have our data filled out for both Tara and for Nat. Okay, so now what we're going to have to do is take this data and plug it into our graph. So our graph, unfortunately, is on the back side, which is a shame because I'm going to have to flip back and forth. It's going to be kind of frustrating, but it's okay. We're going to make it work. Okay, so here's my thing, friends. I have one graph. And on this one graph, I'm supposed to chart both Tara and Nat, right? So let's see. I'll use my green pen. I'm going to do this. Tara is going to be green, and Nat is going to be orange, because those are the colors of Ireland, and my name is Mrs. Ireland, so we'll go with that. All right, so since I'm doing these two different colors, it means when I look back at this later, I will be able to easily tell who is who, because I'm going to be putting two sets of data on this one graph. And that can get confusing if they are not labeled correctly. Okay, so let's start with Tara's data. So Tara started, I'm just going to be flipping back and forth really quick, so I'm sorry if you can't see. Tara's data started at 80 centimeters, and Tara is my green pen. So down here, at age 2, which is right here at the edge, at age 2, Tara was 80. There's my first dot for Tara. Okay, now on my data on the front, what I did was I increased her height by 5 each year, right? Now, luckily, I know how to count by 5s, so I don't have to keep flipping back each time. I'm just going to keep going up on my chart. So if I started at 80, then next year is going to be 85, right? So at 3, she's 85. At 4, she's 90. So each time I'm going 1 year over, and then I'm going up by 5 centimeters, okay? At 5, she's 95. At 6, she's 100, 7, 105, 8, 110, 9, 115, and 10, 120, okay? So there is Tara's growth, and I'm going to go ahead and trace those dots. Luckily, they're very nice and straight because she was growing at a steady rate. You can see that in how steady and straight her line is of her growth over these years. And then I'm just going to label that with my green pen. Green is Tara, okay? Just so I can make sure that I know. All right, so Tara is graphed. Now let's go to Nat. I am switching colors so that I can make sure that I can keep my data separate. And I'm going to look back at my table. So Nat started at 85, and he went from 85 to 95, then 105. So I'm just going to chart those first 3. All right, so Nat, I'm on the same chart as I did with Tara, but I'm using a different color. At age 2, he started at 85, so he's going to start right here. He's already starting above Tara, okay? Then 3, at age 3, he was at 95. So I'm finding where the 95 and the 3 intersect. And you'll notice this is different from yesterday's video because these numbers that I have for their height is actually matching up perfectly with these lines. I don't have to guess where it would be in between like I was doing with the temperatures. So that's kind of handy. I know exactly where to put my dots. That helps me out a little bit. All right, so I did 85, I did 95, and I know at age 4, he was still growing by 10, so that would be 105. Okay, I'm going to check back at my data because I know it changed there. So after age 4, it only increased by 5 each year. So I'm going to keep going from 105, but I'm only going to increase by 5 each year until I finish Nat's chart. Okay, so he's at 105, which means each year after that, I'm just going to increase by 5. 5 would be 110. 6 would be 115. 7 would be 120. 8 would be 125. 9, 130, and 10, 135. Okay, now all I have to do is just connect these dots. Here and here. Okay, so, oh, sorry, I forgot my last thing. Got a label. There. Now it's very clear. I can tell exactly whose data is whose. They're different colors, they're labeled clearly, and now I can look at this and I can compare these so much easier, right? I can look at this visual and I can say, oh, look at that. Well, I see Tara is always shorter than Nat. Looks like at no point was Tara taller than Nat. So that's something I can observe easily from this data. It also looks like Tara was steady the whole time, whereas Nat was not steady the entire time. He was growing pretty fast at the beginning, and then he went a little bit slower. Okay, so now that I can see this, I can get so much information from looking at this visual because it's clearly labeled and I have them both on the same chart here. Okay, so you guys are going to be doing the same thing, coming up with your data, charting it, make sure that it is clear and neat and easy to be read. If you have two different colors, whether it's colored pencils or something else, I would recommend using those because it's so much easier to see who is who on your graph. All right, good luck, everybody. Let your teacher know if you have any questions. Have a good day.